Good morning and welcome to Haventree Parent Podcast, where we get a chance to talk about something that's important to us and to you before the kids pick up or our coffee runs out.
Today we're going to be talking about the topic that we've been alluding to for several podcasts now. We are going to be sharing the biggest fight we've ever had.
Let's go. Let's do it out right now. All right, so like you said, today we're going to talk about our biggest fight or most recent biggest fight.
I think it's probably the biggest fight ever that we've had.
I mean, yeah, I called in mediators to like help us out with
Yeah.
getting a better grasp on things, mostly because I was like, I need support for my helping decision, my brain.
You want people on your team.
Yeah, I just
No.
feel like I needed an outside source for a team, and it was definitely something that, I don't know, was ridiculous. It was helpful, but it was ultimately...
It has happy ending, so don't worry too much. But we're gonna share all the details.
I don't know.
All the details. So you want to hear about...
All right, how did it even
big
begin?
fight.
I don't even
Okay.
know. So like, I come home one day and she's like, "Hey."
No, that's not how it happened. So we had to buy a new minivan.
Oh yeah. This is where it all broke. Our
Well, okay,
van
so let's
broke.
pause though.
Yeah.
We had to buy a new minivan
This is a messy
several
story.
years ago.
So messy. Yeah.
Several years ago. And when we bought the new minivan, we kind of talked about the fact like this is probably the last minivan we'll buy because by the time we're ready for our next vehicle, we're going to need like a church van, right? Like, so we had this conversation like 4 years ago,
Who knows?
probably.
I probably don't remember it.
I think Kenzie was probably like literally a baby still, like maybe one. And so it was truly something like we may have even bought it before Jamie and Ellie came to stay with us that we had this minivan. So we bought this minivan, and we kind of joked about like, well, you know, we better pick a good one because this is the last minivan we'll ever have. Because it was probably the newest vehicle that we had ever bought at that time. You know, low miles, whatever.
New to us. Yeah.
Yeah, new to us, but the newest, nicest like vehicle. And so we expected it to be like our family vehicle for quite some time, and that it would last us until we needed a church van, right? And so we kind of joked about it even when we bought it. And then we used that van. We ended up doing a lot of repairs on that van, and
It's a lemon.
yeah, it died after Obi was born. I think right before Obi turned 1. So it would have been like around Thanksgiving-ish time of the middle of Kenzie's treatment.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was weird. It was like straight to death. It was like we had
Fall.
it checked out for whatever reason.
Yeah, it was
just
like I
gone.
kept saying like it's making a weird noise. Will you just go and get it checked out? And it was like it needs a new engine and a new like everything basically.
Yeah.
And you know, the amount of money we would have had to put into it, it would have been cheaper to buy a new van. So we were like, well, I guess we're going to drive it till it dies. And then we brought it home and it drove for like 4 days and then it did die.
Yeah, I think I took it to the fair with some friends, and
Yeah,
then
and it was dead.
after that trip, like then it started off.
Oh, okay. So if you took it to the fair, it was probably more like August, September time.
Yeah.
So, so naturally, you know, we had talked about after, you know, we didn't expect the van to die when it did. Like, so that was the first thing. The van died at a very inopportune time. We're in the middle of Kenzie's treatment.
Yeah. We've done normal maintenance checks. Like, I'm not a mechanic. I don't know how to
Yeah,
build
Josh is
an
not
engine.
Josh is not a car fixer, but, you know, but we had taken good care of this
Detriment to
car.
our
Like we
lives,
expected it to work for 2 or 3 more years at least.
Yeah.
And we tend to like be the type of people that save for a few years for a car so that we know like once it's getting old, once it's getting like more repairs than it's worth, sorry, I'm having issues. We have money already set aside that we've been setting aside for like a year or 2 for it. Now, obviously, in the middle of Kenzie's treatment, we didn't have that extra money to set aside for that vehicle. We were not expecting that vehicle to need to be replaced when it did. And so there were a lot of kind of problems. But all of a sudden, we're without a van. We need to buy a new van. So I was like, okay, well, then we need to, you know, be looking for our church van. Like, we are at capacity in this van. When all of the kids are in it, it's literally full. We can't, you know, take friends anywhere with us anywhere. We can't, you know, we can't do whatever. Like, it's time for us to like buy the church van that we talked about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever.
And I'd forgotten about talking about that in the past. It was sort of like, I don't know. I just got to a stonewall point
And
where
Josh was like,
frustrations were there.
no,
We're
No.
not doing that. And so for whatever reason, instead, we just didn't buy anything.
Well-
and we saved up, and we had the truck that could fit all of everybody,
So-
but not uncomfortably, and no air conditioning.
Yeah, it didn't fit
So,
everybody, but so it was literally Josh was like, no,
Yeah.
we're not buying a bigger van. And I was like, why? Like, we have to buy a van. We don't have a car that everybody fits in. Like, our whole family can't fit. Like Josh said, literally the truck, if I put 3 kids in the back seat and 2 kids in the front seat with me,
Yeah, and I wasn't going to be
with
involved,
car
then
seats,
I was
right?
gonna
With
go.
5
Yeah.
car seats and booster seats,
They're fine. Yeah.
then I can take all the kids with me in the
Super cab.
farm truck,
Perfect. There you
right?
go.
Like, that's how we were going to leukemia treatments,
Yeah.
like driving an hour to the hospital and home with 5 kids in car seats and booster seats in the truck, the farm truck that we didn't buy to make long drives. We bought to like pick up cows.
To drive once a month. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's what we were doing. So I was like, obviously, we have to figure out how to come up with the money to buy a new van, right? And, it makes sense. Like, we were planning to wait a couple more years to buy our church van, but like, we need to have a van now. So we may as well just buy the church van now because we are at capacity now. And Josh was just
I
like,
hate buying cars. It's not
Yeah.
my favorite thing to do. And like, I think I started looking, and it was just like, the prices just kept going. It was like 15, 20, 25. And I was like, I don't even want to spend this money on this thing because this is an emergency purchase. Like, this is ridiculous amounts of money that I don't want to throw out right now while we're trying to figure out what treatments are. And we have no idea how Kenzie's care is going to go as far as like residual issues. I mean, the seizures, I think it just happened that month before or whatever. And it was like, we were
Josh
getting
was like,
into
no.
a really tight time. And it was just like,
no.
I don't want to make this big purchase that we've known about.
But the silly thing was,
I didn't want to do it.
the silly thing this whole time is he was willing to buy a van.
We have one now, by the way. So
We do.
it's a nice,
You weren't supposed to give the ending away yet.
man. It's all right. It's all right.
He was willing.
I felt like people needed a relief. So
He was willing to buy a van because he agreed we needed a van. He just didn't want a bigger van.
yeah.
Even though we looked at prices, the price of a regular minivan was going to be about the same as the price of like a 12-passenger van. He was like, well, we don't need that many seats. We don't need it. Like, okay, we do not need it right now, but I have to drive an hour plus weekly, multiple times a week with the kids sitting like sardines in the minivan. If we had space and I could have them have a seat in the middle between them so that they didn't fight. I mean, constantly, moms, her arm is on my space. Whatever. Constant. She's leaning over towards me. She's looking at me the whole way down, right? Mm-hmm. Constantly. While we're driving to go get, chemo pumped into Kenzie, the whole drive down, the whole drive back, every time is like this. If we're going to spend the money on a vehicle, I would like a bigger vehicle so that we can separate these hooligans, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you've agreed that we had to spend money. You're not saying, no, we're just not going to buy a car right now. You've agreed we're going to buy a car, but you don't want the bigger car. Even though I'm the one that drives it. I'm the one that takes the kids all around. Mm-hmm. And we talked about getting a bigger car next. And Josh was just like, no. No matter. It did not matter. No matter how much we had this conversation, no matter how much I searched like 30 side-by-side comparisons of used vehicles, same year. Well, then it was, the gas mileage is so much worse. No, it's not. Did all this research, to every argument that Josh had. Well, we don't need it. We don't have that many kids. Well, I'm not looking to buy a 12-passenger van to fill it to the brim. The whole point is I want space between these hooligans. Like, no, we're not, we don't need it. We're not going to get it. I got angry.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that was where things started to get heated. And
I
shot down all of her researched topics and debates.
I got
and
furious.
Anything that she had, I was just like, "Yep, I'm still standing where I am." And
I hear, like, it was literally like, I understand, but we're not doing it. I was beside myself.
Yeah,
I cried because I was so angry. I yelled because I was so angry. I gave ultimatums about never leaving the house because I didn't want to get into the sardine car minivan with all of the crazy people.
Yeah.
I did all of broke all of the fair fighting rules that we talked about last week. I was mad. I was really mad.
Right.
Like really, really mad.
Right. And I'm laughing because obviously, like I said, we did end up buying one. But
now, in retrospect, okay, the reality is, and we've talked about this a lot of times since, the reality is it really wasn't very much about the car, so like we even talked about like, okay, why is it that you're so like opposed to this? Well, I want to, still have money set aside in case the next thing happens. Okay, well, the price of this van versus that van is not different. Well, it's a bigger purchase because it's a bigger vehicle, or like whatever. So, I mean, we went around and around with this, mm-hmm. and I could never really get to like the heart of like why this was such an issue for you or why you were so opposed. Like if you're agreeing to buy a vehicle, you are seeing that they're the same price. You're seeing that gas mileage can be the same on them. And this is not like, oh, well, this one, but if we go like that, all of these arguments could be solved with the same vehicle. And you still are just like stonewalling me. Like, I don't understand,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you really couldn't give me a good reason. I think in retrospect, the fact of the matter was you were still dealing with your own emotions with Ken's, I think there was kind of an aspect of like we had lost so much control over everything in our lives for a while, mm-hmm. Because of, getting this cancer diagnosis for Ken's. And we just had spent so long just trying to like keep up and keep on top of and just like get to the end of the day, get to the end of the week, make sure that like all the balls were still in the air or that, we were making sure at least the important balls were in the air and we were, choosing to forget about some or drop some, and just trying to like make sure all the pieces were still addressed that needed to be. And we had such a loss of control that I think that, part of it for you was just like this aspect of control, of like, I can't explain it, but I'm not going to do it. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Like a stubborn 2-year-old or something.
Yeah.
I'm not getting in this car seat. I am not going to go
like
to wherever you're trying to take me.
We will not do this.
We will not leave Target.
I do not care. I hear your argument. I understand your argument. Your argument is logical, but no, mm-hmm. like you were still grieving, mm-hmm. You were still dealing with,
we lost this van because of dumb reasons, and there's no reason to buy anything bigger right now because we didn't need it yesterday. Why do we need it today now that we lost a van? Like,
right, because we have to spend them, yeah. And so it didn't matter. Like, it wasn't a logical decision.
It wasn't.
For you,
it was. I was just stuck in.
It was just like a stubbornness and a dealing with emotions about other things.
Right. I was putting all my anger on the van situation and just trying to outsource that. So, which obviously broke down your response because you're like, I have all these things answered. This is the answer. This is the right choices to make. And why are you
and it's definitely
it and whatever? So,
talking even about like the last podcast of like love and respect, like I felt so unheard and dismissed. Like, this is the car I have to drive. Right. This is my problem. Like, if it's going to cost the same amount you're telling me I cannot have the tool that I'm asking for no good reason. For no good reason. And I was hurt. You know, I'm
sorry. So
even
sorry.
now, like when I think about it,
Yeah.
like even though it's behind us and it's not a big deal and we can laugh about it, like if I think about like, you know, that argument, like I had never had an experience where I felt with you. I had never had an experience where I felt so just like dismissed, you know, and it infuriated me and it hurt me and it made me mad, you know.
I'm sorry. I laugh when she's angry because I think it's cute, but I know she's really mad at me. I'm gonna have to give her some good snuggles.
And truly, you know, I'm not mad about it now because we can look back and we can say, like, it wasn't because you were trying to be mean or controlling to me. People, when they grieve, they react in weird ways, you know, and it doesn't have to be in a neat and orderly time frame or timeline either. So even though it wasn't 2 days after Kenzie's diagnosis, you were still sort of lashing out or like reacting out because of your emotions and feelings about that, you know? And like now it's obvious. Like when I look back now or when we, you know, have talked about it since, it's very obvious, like, oh, duh, right? But like at the time when I was feeling hurt and feeling totally dismissed and unvalued and, you know, I had spent all this work and this research and whatever, I was not willing to think about what was actually going on for you.
I think it's brought us to a good point or place. Because I feel like this year, I don't know, 2019, I feel like there's probably a lot of that hidden anger or like
and it wasn't even like anger or resentment with one another. There was just so much of it about
just all the tension and stress that we had about Kenzie's, like I said, with the seizures going on and whatever else we were trying to figure out, and just the changing of medications and whatever. I think there was just that built up of stress, and Obi being one and getting probably any sleep.
Right.
Right. Just, you know, probably just all that culmination of events was just stressing, and it was just an easy target for whatever reason for me to just attach to with everything
and just say like, no, I have not been able to control anything. This is the one thing I have a say in, and this is my say,
right?
You know, and it is, and it's silly, and we can laugh about it, and it's easy to like talk about this and sort of make you the villain, but I think that like that's not really the case. Like if I look at like the actual way that I talk to you or the way that I reacted, like I was unreasonable. I lost my head. I said ridiculous.
Yeah, I did like we said earlier in this podcast series. I did the whole like silent just response of like being, you know, just
Josh was like cool as a cucumber. Like okay, well, sure. I hear you, but no. Like,
be as mad as you want, do what you want.
And I
gonna stand here.
I stomped and you know, temper tantrumed like a 2-year-old. I mean, like, yes,
we were both being 2. We were 2-year-olds fighting over a toy truck. So,
right.
Anyway, so.
And you know, and so it's easy to make it sound like you were the one that was terrible and you were the one that was being unreasonable and illogical. And yes, in retrospect, you were, but there is a reason for that. But like when it came to like who was more inappropriate, like during the argument, I have to take the blame for that. Like I said, like I will never get in the van again. Like I will, you know, like fine, you know, you're going to have to take time off work then and take them. Like I'm not going to do it anymore. If you're going to make me, you know, get a car and cram all those kids in, you take time off work and take them, you know, just like I got ugly, you know. And so I certainly don't want this to be like Josh did this stupid thing, you know, because I was witchy, you know. I was not.
But I said
not
because
nice
of the responses that I had gotten, and I was like, I was being selfish and just absorbed into myself and not giving much of an answer other than no. I did call for mediation, and you know, we went to our church group and we were like, hey, can you guys just help us talk this out and be on my side or be on her side, just to help us figure out these sides of this.
And that was really kind of interesting too, because I think in that I sort of got chastised more. like, because
Well, I mean, I called for help, so I mean that.
yeah, so they had heard your perspective ahead of time. I wouldn't say chastised. I would just say, like, they also got to hear about all of the things that I had said, or like, you know, my anger about it.
I know. And
so,
I have it all blocked out. Like, she's like, you can share anything I said. And I was like, I don't really remember. I blocked that whole argument is gone from my brain.
and so there was a lot of like conversation about like, well, was this a fair thing to say? I'm like, no, but
Yeah.
you know, and I was at that point, by the time we went and sat with them, I was so hurt. I was so done that I had a really hard time even like verbalizing, like, this is the issue, right? And so the conversation when we went and talked with them was kind of about like my not showing you respect, or like addressing some of the things that I had said and did, which were inappropriate, as I've said. But, you know, we left, and I just honestly, I kind of felt like defeated, you know, a little bit like, fine, you know, and it wasn't fine, like, fine, I'll show you you're wrong. But I just was kind of like, I don't have any energy left to discuss this, you know, like, I am tired of feeling hurt. You know, I'm tired of arguing with you and having you just dismiss me for no reason. I'm tired of being at odds with you. I disagree with you, and I don't like it, and I still don't feel heard. But I'm, at the end of the day, you're the husband, you know? And I didn't really like it. You know, I didn't. And I remember like going to dinner with my friend, and she was just kind of asking about, you know, what the situation was. Cause our, you know, like, people knew, like, our van died. We were having to try to figure out getting a new van, trying to come up with the money to get the new van, different things like that.
Yeah.
On top of then like having a fight about what kind of van we were going to get.
Right.
And so, you know, I told her, like, and it was, at this point, it was after I had said, like, I don't agree, but fine, you know? And so I told her, you know, like, this is what we're doing. You know, this is what I wanted. This is what Josh wanted. And ultimately, you know, we're doing what Josh wanted.
Yes,
and
I won for like a month.
And
I mean, it was like, I don't know, a year. I
well,
guess.
yeah, we drove. Yeah. But I'm not happy about it, but it is what we're doing. And she kind of said, like, you know, I get it and I admire you, but I don't know if I would be able to do that. And I was like, yeah, I still don't really like it. I still don't really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But I'm not willing to fight about it. You know, I'm okay with just saying, okay. And so then we ended up being more or less given a minivan, which was such a blessing, because we were still trying to figure out where the money was going to come from to buy the van that we needed anyway.
Yeah,
you know?
And it was basically replaces off of what we had, and that was what I was
now
looking
it was
for. Yeah,
so the benefit, or the reality was, the van that we were given lasted much longer than I expected it would last even. It had a lot of miles on it.
Front bumper was falling off, and
Yeah, it
had
is.
zip ties to hold it on, so that was cool.
It is a van.
And a screw to hold on the review mirror was screwed into the panel. So whoever set that up, I mean, it was, I don't know. My dad sold it for us this past month when we got the new van, and he was like, it was hard to sell. People were like, no.
It is a van that is known for having lots of issues. It is a van that is known for needing lots of repairs. And literally, I think we got it around Thanksgiving time. And I was like, if it survives the winter, I will be thankful. Like, that's literally like, it was a van, you
Yeah,
know, and it
yeah.
ran, and we could put our whole family in
Supposedly
it. And so
there was
I was,
another one that should have been the one, and that one is in better shape. So,
that's okay.
Yeah.
And I was thankful, you know, like be given a van when we were, you know, when I was still upset about spending money on something that wasn't what I wanted, you know, when I was still upset about feeling unheard, when I was, you know, I'm thinking like, we're going to drop a lot of money that we didn't really have set aside on a van that I'm going to have to drive for the next 5 to 10 years. That is not what I wanted. And be okay with that, you know? And I made that decision to submit to you fully expecting that, you know? And so then to be given a van, even though it was not the van that we would have spent money on, to be given a van to sort of like provide that buffer to us was a blessing. I think it's ironic though that like that van came after I said, okay, after I chose to drop it and let it be, then the van came. And the van did last us through the winter. That van lasted us through the winter, lasted us through the whole next year. In fact, the only reason that we did choose to start saving to buy a bigger van was when we found out we were expecting. If
Right.
it wasn't for,
Right.
if we weren't pregnant, we would still be driving that van. And, you know, so once we found out we were expecting, it was sort of like, well,
There's not an 8th seat now. So.
unless you're going to ride in the trunk of the minivan, we must
Darn it!
buy a bigger van.
Ruled myself out.
And so, you know, we just recently bought a wonderful little church van. It's a 12-passenger van.
We gave it the name of the hippogriff. So
Yeah,
or
it's the Buckbeak. Yeah, yeah, Buckbeak. It's a big gold Ford E350. You know, like it has more power than the farm truck does, but you know, and we've loved it. And then it's so funny because we laugh every time we like take a long drive with it, like down to family or, you know, just different
the
things.
kids all start eating themselves still. They're all like, we all sit in the front row. Like, they all
Yeah.
want to be together.
But-
so it's
but
funny.
when
There's,
they
like,
do
there's 3
spread
more rows.
out,
Please spread out.
It's
So,
wonderful. Like
yeah.
they're so quiet. And like Josh and I have this conversation in the front and it's like, wow, this is really like pretty amazing. And Josh's like, yeah.
I'm excited about it. I mean,
Yeah.
we did get it, and I can see how it's beneficial.
Yeah.
Because usually, I was like, in the old van, I was like, you just play road games the whole way down there. For an hour and a half, you just play I Spy. That's easy. Keeps them entertained.
No, it
It's
does
good.
not. It
Good to
does
go.
not.
Why is there problems doing this?
And but it has been like Josh has been like, okay, I get it.
I understand now why they needed to have space.
You were correct all this time.
Yeah.
And it has, but I would say, well, would you say that I have been relatively gracious in like not, I told you soing?
I mean, I think there was like the first week you were like, I told you.
Isn't this nice?
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, now I'm being the same way with like,
Yeah.
that's how I was when you were like, okay, nothing. And I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
So
it is, but it
we
is
both had
really
our
nice.
time of like the whole issue was, I don't know. I don't know. He went through this whole year with being resentful at me for the whole event.
Well,
or
but I
whatever,
think that's
whatever
really-
that emotion has been, or submissive to that factor and just like not bringing it up and waiting. And like, because there hasn't been any like sort of pinpricks of like, hey, we need to do this.
Right.
And
It
hasn't
was
been
like,
any,
once I said, fine.
there was no
you-
nagging or
I don't
no-
understand,
there was no
but I'm
continued
not going to
conversation.
argue you. Like,
Yeah.
that was it. Like, and so then people would ask, like, so are you getting a bigger van? And it was just sort of like, and that was the time that I always had to like swallow the humble pie of like, nope, not right now. And be like, well, why? And that was hard for me. It was hard to not like be like, because Josh doesn't want one because he's being an irrational brat, you know, like, so that was the time that it was the most difficult for me to just be like, well, Josh and I talked about it and we just, you know, chose not to do that right now.
Yeah.
You know, and people I think that know us could kind of see like that I wasn't thrilled about that. Like our small group, I think, you know, in particular asked, and it was sort of like, well, because, you know, this is what we're doing right now, you know? And so it was when other people asked that it was hard for me to like explain and be respectful still. But like when it was just us, it was sort of like, I had already told you, Like I'd already said, like, I'm not happy about this. You know that I'm not happy about this, but I'm not going to fight you anymore about it.
Right.
You know, and I didn't, you know, and I appreciate, you know, hearing that I didn't bring it up or nag about it. Like once I said, you know,
I mean, there
okay,
might have been like maybe once that I felt that way, but yeah.
you know, it is nice to hear. Like I spent a year, like this is not what I wanted. But I think it was easier for me too.
And I think I knew, and I saw that, and I felt bad, and I was like, "Oh gosh, sometime I'll look at this thing."
I think though that the other,
but I didn't want to give up on my own resolve for putting up that wall anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was a weird spot to be in on myself, and I was weird to watch you be in that okay moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's definitely, I don't know.
Once you got your way, it wasn't as satisfying as you expected it to be.
No, because it wasn't like you were happy. You were just like, okay, and like there was no happiness with that decision. So it wasn't like a good fight result of like, we all decided that we are going to Disneyland. It was
Right.
like, we decided we're just gonna like go to the desert, and like that's it. We're just gonna be in the desert. Like, awesome, this is the best vacation ever. So glad we came to the desert.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But obviously it did, you know, it worked out. And I think it was a good learning experience for both of us. You know, it's really the only time that I can point to where I really, really aggressively, vehemently disagreed.
and I wish I could remember more of those
And-
ridiculous things,
and
because
was
I'm
not-
sure you guys would all get a good laugh out of all of
Out of my ranting
Yeah.
and raving. Oh, please. There was a lot of it. I mean, I'm ashamed to think about like the ranting and raving that
you
I
probably beat
did.
yourself up more about it than I can, because I don't even remember half of it. So
You know,
like I said, I blocked it all out because I was in a weird mindset. So it wasn't a real conversation we were having. To me, it was like I already decided no. Even
Yeah.
whatever you can say whatever you want at this point, it's still going to be no forever because I already blocked it all out. So,
yeah, that's really how it went.
yeah. I mean that's all she was like. That's why she kept getting angrier and angrier. So
Oh yeah, I ranted like lunatic.
anyway,
Yeah. So, you know, so it is something that I look back and like am ashamed of my behavior. But it's also like it was a good learning experience for me to say like I am 100% against this. It's not fair. It's not, you know, you're not being fair. Like you're not being loving. You're not concerned with my opinion, you know. But I'm gonna choose to submit to you in this, and it is not fun.
yeah.
you
And
know?
it was a weird spot for me to be in because I was like, okay. I know
Like what? This has never happened before.
what I do now. Like I'm in a weird spot. So it was definitely bizarre. Like I said, that I could say like out of body experience type of feeling where just like I'm watching this. She's like driving this van that we have now, and like oh gosh, I don't know what I mean. I like this, but I didn't like it, but I was happy with
That you
the
got your way,
result.
yeah.
So it was like
Like every time I left with all the kids, you knew. Like
it was like I was walking on eggshells at that point because I was like, this could come up at any time. Like I don't know. Like I said, there was no nagging. There was no like I didn't want to bring it up. She didn't want to bring it up, and
Right.
we were both just like going through the motions of like normalcy after that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, it's a weird thing, and I don't know. It is what it is. Once we found out we were pregnant, we're like,
well,
that
this is a really
ends
easy conversation
that,
now.
That ends that argument.
And
So, yeah,
thankfully,
yeah.
you know, I think the other thing that saved, you know, us in this, like I said, for one, the fact that we were given a van, you know, made it easier for me to swallow that humble pie, you know.
Right.
Obviously, if we had spent the money to buy a van, it also, like the money would have been spent, so I would have had nothing else to say then either, you know. So like regardless, I think once I said fine, I knew that I had to stick with that. But like I think it was helpful that, you know, by being given a van, we hadn't spent money, and I didn't feel as resentful, you know. I didn't feel as resentful because we didn't spend money for something I didn't want, you know. And so that made it easier for me to be just thankful for being given a van, you know. And I think if it had died, it would have been hard for me to then accept again, like, okay, he still is saying no, you know, and now we are going to spend money. Like that would have been difficult for me, you know. But so I think that like,
it happened the best way it could for the worst
for
way to go
for the
about
biggest
it.
fight we've ever
Yeah.
had. We got
Yeah.
very lucky.
Yeah. We still love each other. Like I said, I'll hug her
still love
later.
you. Yeah. And like I think at the end of the day, like the reason that it was the biggest, ugliest fight we've ever had is because we were both wrong. We were both in the wrong for different reasons about
Right.
different points.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I think it is why we say, like, if you are focused on your way, if you're focused on winning, nobody wins, and I think that is how we both felt,
Yeah.
like I was the loser, so to speak, of the initial fight, by,
And now she's the winner.
I was, like I waved the white flag, so to speak.
Right.
And probably even with me waving the white flag, like we left that argument with me feeling better than you did in some ways, like even though I was the loser, because as you said, then you sort of always had like this guilty feeling of like
every trip out, like there they go, like are they gonna come back, are they gonna make it back on this van that might not make it through winter or whatever, so
Right.
like is it gonna be a problem, are they gonna crash into everything out there, like what's gonna happen? So
right, are they going to be miserable the whole time,
is she purposely gonna wreck it? No, I'm kidding. No, well, the kids in it, I'm sure, so.
No. Might leave it on the edge of a cliff and get out. I don't know what happened.
Jump, everyone.
And so like, even though you won, I don't think you felt good about that either.
Yeah, no, it was like a temporary, like for the day. I was
the
like,
moment,
oh, cool, great,
wow,
conversation's over. And then it was like, oh wait, I don't want confrontation, so this is good. But now
every day,
every time they drive away in this thing, I don't know if they're coming back safely.
Right. And you just kind of had that feeling of knowing that it wasn't what I wanted.
The ideal setup. Yeah.
And so I think that it is a really good example of like, if you're not approaching the disagreement, the discussion, whether it's big or little, whether it's dumb, whether it's, important, if you're being argumentative, and trying to get your way, then you're already going to fail, both of you. So yeah, that's our biggest disagreement. If you have thoughts or opinions, we would love to hear from you. Especially like, what's your big dumb, because now we look back and I'm like, this was such a stupid thing to be so upset about, and for both of us, it was more about the emotions surrounding it. So we would love to hear like some dumb things that you guys have had big arguments about.
Yeah, hopefully this was
that are resolved. We don't want to hear about in the current arguments.
This is encouraging to you in some way.
And
but enjoy this conversation. So
enjoy our candidness about the biggest fight ever.
Don't ask about it anymore. Until the next adventure.
Bye.